Take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Who gon' take it there? Electricity, 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 electricity. You know what's in the air. 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 It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility. It's possibility.
So Tim Dillon had Steve Bannon on his podcast recently. Tim Dillon is a comedian. He has Netflix shows. He's got specials. He came up in the so-called Rogan sphere, although he seems to be one of the ones within that world who has kind of his own career at the same time. Like, as of right now, he does not seem super hitched to the Joe Rogan universe of comics, comics that Joe Rogan has brought up using his massive platform. Although Tim Dillon definitely benefited from Joe Rogan's platform, it just seems like he has a little bit of independence from that, whereas like a lot of comedians move down to Austin, Texas to be near Joe Rogan and catch some of the money that is flowing downstream from him. Tim Dillon has only done that sort of thing to an extent, and he seems to have built up a significant amount of wealth and career prospects on his own. I know he has some kind of real estate thing going on or something. He's some type of landlord, so that's partially how he has been able to have some like financial independence. And he's, done some considerable comedy work. I think he's reasonably funny. He's definitely said things that have made me laugh. However, his statements and his sort of willingness to entertain Trump politics indicates that there's a little bit of I don't know what you would call it, malice, a lack of seriousness, some genuine racism or bigotry or whatever it is. I mean, a lot of comics you could kind of accuse of the same thing, of just being vaguely bigoted in whatever way the sort of wind blows, whatever they feel like is going to get them the most attention. So he said a ton of bigoted stuff. He's not a guy that I really admire, but he's had a couple takes in the past that have made me laugh. I think a lot of times he kind of plays it to the middle. So he has Steve Bannon on his podcast, or I think he went to Steve Bannon's place to do a podcast with Steve Bannon, but it was Tim Dillon's show. And, talking to a guy like that makes it clear what the game is for a dude like this. I think Tim Dillon was doing some political interviews during the election. Can't remember if he interviewed Trump. Maybe he did a while ago or something like that, or maybe it was Trump Jr. or something like that. But I know that he's been sort of in the political world for a while, and interviewing a guy like Steve Bannon just shows that you don't really care if your audience is being lied to, because Steve Bannon says a lot of interesting things, and I understand the temptation to want to talk to him directly or hear him out or whatever. But the reason he's been marginalized as a figure is because we have heard Steve Bannon out. Steve Bannon is not a new figure. He's not saying anything new. What he says in this Tim Dillon interview, he talks a lot about techno-feudalism and his view of how the world is changing with technology and where right-wing, or in his words, populist politics fits into that. And so there's an interesting sort of dressing to a lot of the things that he says. But ultimately, this guy is a racist. This guy advocates for racist politics. And his version of populism is specifically aimed at stoking racism. The only reason that Steve Bannon is not coming across so much as a virulent and, psychopathic bigot in everything that he says is because the Republican Party has already adopted all of his immigration policy, his ideal immigration policy. When Trump goes on stage and says they're eating the cats and they're eating the dogs, I mean, that is Steve Bannon style politics. That is how he wanted to redesign the American conversation, and he's done it. So he has no need to go on his platform and say virulently racist things, because he has convinced the rest of the Republican Party to do it in some way. So in this interview, like I said, they talk about a lot of things. It seems like Tim Dillon just lets Steve Bannon blab. I didn't see much of him challenging him, really. There might have been a couple moments of that. But the most important thing that I want to highlight is this moment where Tim Dillon asks Steve Bannon about the Nazi salute that he did. I believe it was at CPAC. So let's listen to that.
The salutes that Elon, I think, might have done one by mistake, or you did one, these things that people are getting very upset about. You just got a lot of press at CPAC or whatever it was.
I gave a motivational talk, and at the end, I always give a wave to the audience. What they did is they took a nanosecond clip and said, Bannon's throwing a Nazi or Roman salute. They just came out today, Byron York over the Washington Examiner came out with a photo of Kamala Harris doing the same thing a couple of years ago, where she waved to the audience.
So this is just silly.
No, but what they're trying to, listen, the speech, I gave the speech and said...
Because you go like this, you go, but you're probably waving.
I'm waving to the crowd, yes.
I just did it. This is the clip.
You're waving to the... And by the way, I did, with the French guy, with the French guy...
It's easy to do. You can do it. You go,
with the French guy that said he wouldn't come, they had a thing, a Front National, where I talked to their group 7 years ago. I did the exact same thing. I went up and waved to the crowd like that, and I go, oh, God.
Nothing you've said today indicates that you have any adoration for or sympathy for any of the Hitlerian, right?
But people know. But what they didn't want to do is cover the speech. In the speech, I said, the whole world's media is there. The same guy, the whole world's media is there. They're not there to see Bannon.
So here you have the same exact weak excuse, not even trying to make a real excuse for doing this. This is the definition of talking out of both sides of your mouth. You throw up the obvious Nazi salute. It's clearly a reference to what Elon Musk did. He's clearly trying to play into that same trope and encourage more people to do the same thing. Very obviously a Sieg Heil. And but then on the other, you have to turn around and you have to say, oh, it's ridiculous that I would be doing no, I was waving to the crowd. It's an easy thing to do. On accident, you just wave to the crowd. And I mean, I'm pretty disgusted by the way Tim Dillon just like laps that up. He just completely sides with him on that. Yeah, sure, it's an easy thing to do. You're doing a wave gesture and it actually accidentally looks like a Nazi. Oops, I just did it just now. Haha. And that's just, it's just pathetic. It's the opposite of journalism. Because he asked him this question and then just completely uncritically accepts his answer. And it's not a sufficient answer. So all he's doing is giving Steve Bannon a moment to explain away what he did. That's the only purpose of that question. He's not actually trying to challenge him or get to the bottom of it. And then he, kind of tacitly agrees with this sentiment. Oh, it's ridiculous. You'd be a Nazi. And of course you wouldn't do that. And, so Tim Dillon knows better than that. I know he knows better than that. He knows how to surmise when somebody is lying to his face. So he clearly just lets Steve Bannon do that in this moment because he wants to launder this Nazi salute that Steve Bannon did. He wants to launder his reputation, and he wants to help Steve Bannon explain his way out of that so they can talk about the other things that they were talking about and normalize Steve Bannon's politics further. And one of the other things that Tim Dillon says there is he says, none of the things you said today indicate that you have any type of beliefs towards that. And Steve Bannon says, of course not, it's ridiculous. And that's interesting to me because if you have a sophisticated ear, if you know what you're listening for, actually a lot of the things that Steve Bannon said are aligned with Nazism. Pretty much all of it. Because a very important portion of that, a very important way that the Nazis came to power is by being able to say out loud and address things that Germans saw in their own lives as problems and could acknowledge as true. The reason Nazis had socialist in their name is because it was a Trojan horse. They were pretending to be the solution to Germany's problems and appealing to Germans on the basis that was already popular, which was socialism. And so everything that Steve Bannon is saying about populism, pointing out the tech feudalists and how they're consolidating power. He talks a lot about the relationship between tech companies and like Obama era politics and how Obama helped to create these tech oligarchs to be as powerful as they are, etc. He makes a lot of good points. He even says that he likes Lina Khan and he would like Lina Khan to come back. Lina Khan being the person who was leading the FTC. She was taking out all kinds of lawsuits against big companies like Meta and Google, to antitrust lawsuits, essentially reining them in their overreaches of power and monopoly. So Steve Bannon aesthetically praises politics like that because he wants to address the concerns of his audience that tech companies are too powerful, they have too much control over what we say, they have too much control over the politics of our country. All of those things are true, and that's why Steve Bannon points them out. And yet, all of this whole song and dance with Tim Dillon and what Steve Bannon goes on his show every day to do is to distract you from the fact that what's happening with Trump's administration is the opposite of that. Steve Bannon said he was going to have Elon Musk out of Donald Trump's inner circle by Inauguration Day. That did not happen. And so he's going and talking about, these tech feudalists. He says he wants to keep Lena Khan in the administration. That did not happen. So Steve Bannon has no influence. He has none. The only influence that he has is over his own audience. And so his job is to make them think that the MAGA movement is populist while they consolidate power and round up immigrants, target marginalized communities, target anybody who isn't white, target anybody who isn't right-leaning. And to convince his audience that that's populism, that's what they want, that's addressing their concerns. That's Steve Bannon's role. That is explicitly Nazism. That is National Socialism. So, look, I'm not saying that Steve Bannon follows that doctrine to the key, but clearly, by doing the Sieg Heil, he is referencing fascism as a whole. He's referencing Elon referencing fascism as a whole. And he's essentially signaling that they are on the same side. Like they are, despite all of this, I hate Elon, I'm fighting with him, I don't like tech feudalists, I don't like blah, blah, blah. And yet, he's making it very clear on a subconscious level that his movement is exactly the same as Elon Musk's movement. And that is incompatible with this populist rhetoric that he spouts about being anti-tech oligarch. Because really what he wants is state consolidation of power with corporations combined with Christian nationalism to have the strongest stranglehold on society possible. That is fascism. He's explicitly a fascist. If Tim Dillon was actually smart and didn't just know how to sound smart in the way that he makes jokes, then he would have seen that. But also, I just think that he doesn't care. And, at this point, if you don't already know what I said about Steve Bannon, you either haven't been paying attention, you're dumb, or you're lying. So with Tim Dillon, who knows? It could be a combination of all three. But I think he's probably just lying.
Yes, Tim Dillon of Joker 2 fame. Yeah, that's just another example of how much worse Joker 2 is than the first one. The first one we get Mark Maron, the second one we get Tim Dillon. Now, actually, I didn't even hate Joker 2 as much as most people, but getting off topic there. Yeah, he sets him up for it. He says, Elon probably did it accidentally, or whatever he says at the start of that clip. It's like, he probably accidentally did it, or likely accidentally did it, or whatever, a Nazi salute or a Roman salute. In Red White, he's giving him an out. He sets him up. He clearly wants to stay on his good side, and I don't know where that comes from. Does he really like this guy? Is he afraid of this guy? Steve Bannon's kind of the mastermind behind a lot of the country's problems right now, so maybe it's smart to stay on his good side, but it's disappointing to see. And the Nazi salute thing is so clear-cut. You can take a lot of videos of people doing things, and from certain angles or in a moment, it may look like that. He even says they took a video of me, and 1 nanosecond of it looks like that. I've seen the video. It's pretty clearly a Nazi salute. I think you're right. He was referencing what Elon did, most likely. And Elon's is so specifically clear, the way he hits his chest and goes out and does it twice in a row. There's no question there. I'm sick of people giving him passes on that one. But it does happen where people will isolate one frame and make it look like that, right? But with Elon's and Bannon's, it's pretty damn clear when you watch the full video. He claims they take a nanosecond and it looks like that. I don't agree with that. And then he even says later, there's a picture of Kamala doing it. And it's like he's trying to have it both ways. Because that picture is, I know which one he's talking about. It's the one they always circulate. When you watch the actual video, it doesn't look like a Nazi salute at all. It's just one frame in the middle of the wave. And, you know, I've seen them put that up for Tim Walz. That's one that gets referenced a lot. I think Joe Rogan and Elon talked about it in this last Elon JRE Dick Suck experience. They did it for Obama, Biden, like all these people. And it's easy to take 1 second of a motion or one frame of a motion and make it look like that shirt. But his was clear, and so was Elon's. And Tim sitting here riding along with it and, you know, propping him up like it was an accident and just, you know, giving him excuse after excuse. Like, he starts making excuses before he even explains himself. It's disgusting.
If you like this video, please like and subscribe. And if you really want to support the channel, consider becoming a member. That's the best way to support this channel. I'm going to be posting all kinds of exclusive content there, like book reviews, movie reviews, songs, beats, if you like the beats that play in the back of these podcasts, and more. If there's ideas that you have for exclusive content that you'd like to see, let me know and we'll figure some things out.